Hi guys, welcome to today's live stream here at the Australian Reptile Park. Thanks everybody for listening in. I hope everyone's staying safe at home and enjoying these live streams, and they're bringing a bit of joy to your lives at home. Hopefully we're not in lockdown for too much longer. Let's get stuck into it today. I've got two small marsupials for you today. We have in this pouch here two squirrel gliders, okay? Now these ones are called Rocket and Gamora, named after the Marvel characters. They are brother and sister. They're about 9 months old at the minute, and they are hand-raised squirrel gliders. Now, that means we took them home, we gave them milk feeds at home, so they are very, very friendly. Now, these are nocturnal animals, but because they're hand-raised, they're pretty friendly and they can be pretty busy. So we might have to do a little bit of wrangling as we go. They have a very high metabolism and they're very, very active and very quick sometimes. So we'll talk a little about the squirrel glider. Now, you've probably heard of sugar gliders. Very, very similar species, although this species is a bit larger. So squirrel gliders are about 150 grams, whereas once these ones are full grown, they're about 300 grams, and they can be they're a little bit longer, about 10 centimeters longer than a sugar glider. Now you can see they're having a bit of a sniff. They're probably going to come out of the pouch, and I'll talk about a little bit about their namesake very, very soon. Now, this particular species you find all across the Great Dividing Range, and there is a small pocket of them in a little area of Victoria as well. They're not as common as the sugar glider, and Rocket here is going to come out and show you what he's made of. So let's talk about those, where they get their name from. These membranes underneath here, the gliding membranes, I probably can't show you. We'll pop him back in the pouch, and then we might get his sister
We might see them
out.
later.
Yeah, we might get his sister out. So they get their name from those gliding membranes, and this species can glide up to about 90 meters, while the sugar glider is a little bit shorter. They can only glide about 60 or 70 meters. Now, there's 6 different species of gliders in Australia. The greater glider is the largest. It's about 1.7 kilos, and the feathertail glider is probably about 8 centimeters long and weighs between 10 to 14 grams. So there is a bit of a wide variety of them. These ones are sort of in the middle, the squirrel gliders, like I mentioned before, a bit bigger than the sugars. Now, in the wild, they're nocturnal, as I mentioned at the start, and they're coming out at night time. That's when they're doing all their activity. They'll come out and feed on the pollen and nectar of flowers. They like to eat the sap of the trees as well, and also small insects in the trees. And they've also been known to eat the eggs of birds and even nesting chicks as well. So they are have a bit of a ravenous appetite sometimes. In captivity, though, we give them fruit, veg, native flowers, and also we make up a special nectar mix, which I have a little bit of here. It's very high in sugars, and they absolutely love it. So we might be able to get Rocket to have a bit of a lap of that. Now, I can't let him drink the whole thing, as I mentioned. It's pretty high in sugars, and he's already bouncing off the walls, so we don't want him to have too much, so we might take it away from him. Now, we feed them in the afternoon here at the reptile park because they come out at night time. So we'll give them a little bit of this, some veg and fruit as well, and the flowers, as I mentioned earlier. Now, these two will be fully grown in December when they're about 12 months old and sexually mature. And they will breed through April to November. And they'll have about 1 to 2 litters per year, and 1 to 2 young or joeys per litter as well. So they don't really have more than 2. And what will happen is mum will give birth to them, very undeveloped live young. About 3 weeks is the gestation period for a squirrel glider. And then at about 130 days old, so around 4 months, that's when they're fully weaned off mum's milk. They'll be staying in the little den that she's made, and they like to nest in the tree hollows, and they'll bring leaf litter in and things like that. And that's where the young will stay in there until they're about 5 or 6 months old, and they're coming out at night time and joining in on mum's activities and doing what squirrel gliders do. Now, I mentioned that these ones can glide about 90 meters. The largest species, which is the greater glider, can glide up to 100 meters. And even that small feathertail glider as well, the one that's 8 centimeters long, they can glide over 20 25 meters. So we have the feathertail gliders here at the reptile park as well. If you have been up to our nocturnal house, you can see them there. They get their namesake from that feather tail that they've got. Now, the main difference in colour between these ones and the sugar gliders, because they do look very similar, is that black stripe on the head there. It's a little bit more broad, and their underparts, so underneath their belly, are a little bit whiter. They're not as like a creamy colour like they are on a sugar glider, and their tail is a little bit black as well than the sugar gliders as well. Now, they have a couple of threats in the wild, the main one being habitat fragmentation. So they live in the trees, so when we deforest, they lose their habitat, and their habitat gets fragmented. So things like roads and all that sort of stuff play a big part in why this species is threatened. Now, if we can get him out again, we might get his sister out because she's a little bit less hypo, and we can try and show you that gliding membrane. And they are very, very soft. People often ask me what they feel like. You'll never feel anything as soft as a glider. Now, we'll try and show you just here that gliding membrane there. And what they'll do is they'll jump from tree to tree, all right? And they'll spread their front and rear legs out, and they'll create like a parachute almost, or a glide, and they'll jump from tree to tree and get around like that. Very amazing animals. You do have other types of gliding animals as well in different continents, so it is a trait that different continents or animals have evolved, and it's a pretty efficient way to get around. Rocket here being the male, you probably can't see on the camera, he's got a little bit of a scent gland here on the top of his head, and he'll use that as he's getting around in the trees. He'll use that to mark his territory, and you can see he's got pretty big ears for such a small animal, so they've got very good hearing, and the eyes are excellent. They can see at night time. They got those claws there, which are excellent for climbing as well. And they'll spend most of their day in the tree hollows and things, nesting when the sun comes down. That's when they'll come out and do their business. We'll try him on a little bit of rock melon as well. No, not too keen on that. He says, give me the nectar back. You've had enough, mate. Any questions?
Yeah, so do these guys hang out in groups in the wild?
No, not necessarily. They're pretty solitary. Being brother and sister, they will hang out for, like I said, for about the first 12 months. We will have to separate them though, because they are related and we can't breed them. So come December, when they're fully grown, we will separate them probably a little bit before, but they'll hang out with mum until they're about 4 years old. But once they're weaned and on their own, that's basically it.
Is it unusual for family groups to stay together for that long?
No, not really. You know, you can house these together and they get along quite well in captivity, and in the wild it's sort of the same thing, but when you've got males come into contact with each other like Rocket here, they can get quite aggressive to one another. So the boys tend to go and do their own thing, be a bit more solitary than the females.
Are their teeth quite sharp? We can see their little front teeth on the camera.
Yeah, they've almost got like a little bit of an underbite. It's kind of cute, and they groom each other as well. They can bite, it can hurt, but being hand raised, these two are very friendly. They might have a little bit of a nibble here and there, but it's more of like a love bite than anything. It doesn't hurt.
Are there any other Australian species that they're related to?
Yeah, so possums and gliders are in the same family. So we did a live stream a few weeks back about the ringtail possums. So they are very, very closely related, gliders and possums.
Whereabouts in Australia do you find them?
These ones all across the Great Dividing Range, so through New South Wales, up into Queensland, even in the Cape York region of Queensland as well. They're not as common as the sugar glider though, so if you see one of these, it's pretty special.
What can our viewers at home do to help these guys in their own backyards?
Yeah, so just like the ringtail possums, I think I mentioned having nest boxes in your backyard or promoting conservation of these species. Also, not knocking down trees and trying to protect their habitat as well is very, very important, what we can do to save them.
Okay, let's see if they'll try a little bit of apple maybe.
Yeah. So you can see that she's got a little tail, and they use their tail like a pair of eye covers. So they'll sleep kind of curled in a ball with their tail over their eyes. It's really cute. As they are nocturnal, they're probably a little less likely to sort of be out and about at the minute. You can see her just like, no, I've had enough. And she's sort of just positioning
All
herself.
right.
And this is what they'll do. They'll just go to sleep like this.
Oh, well, it looks like it's nap time, so we might leave it there, Hewan.
Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate everyone tuning in today. I hope everyone enjoyed the live stream, and tune in tomorrow for our Elvis feeding at 2 p.m. And it should be really good. The weather's warming up, so hopefully Elvis is on fire.
That's great. Thanks, Hewan.
Thanks, guys. See you later.